Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Kane. So, Eric and I actually go pretty far back. I remember him from the smoothie bar at Perpetual Fitness, where he talked a lot about Kane Incognito. And I remember he stood out because he is like 6'8", not actually 6'8", and he has a ton of tattoos. So, um, again, man, very, very stoked to have this convo with you. And I have actually seen you play live a couple times recently, which has been awesome. But I'm looking forward to having this chat.
Likewise. It's great to connect on this level as well.
Yeah, man, of course. So everybody has to do it when they come on. They have to give a little bit of a backstory, what got them into what they're currently doing. But I think for you, what got you into music? I know for you, it ties pretty deep to your roots. So, again, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, whatever you think the audience would benefit from hearing, let's get into it. And then what made you pursue music as passionately as you are now?
Yeah, I mean that question is can be hours long to answer, or there's a somewhat of a short answer, but exactly that. It is definitely rooted in my DNA. Basically, my family on my mom's side was very musical from Ireland, and over the years of actually performing, it's pretty incredible to see and have people tell me that some of the melodies and all these just how I present myself musically without even trying um, have like Celtic influences where I don't listen to Irish music at all. So it literally goes to my DNA, um, which I feel is where the calling was always implanted in my being, in my soul, in my blood. Um, so I was raised with part of my family in Ireland. My grandpa came over on a boat, literally, met my grandma, had my mom and other brothers, and I was raised around the piano, around my uncle's Uncle Dale playing guitar, and just was really submerged in the love of and passion of music, but always very, very timid and always very shy to pursue anything like that. Um, and I kind of did for a little while. I got my first guitar gifted to me from my sister when I was about 16, when I was kind of talking a little bit about it and showing interest. And my older sister kind of stepped up and got me this gift at a time when my parents had split up at that point, and she just knew it was a smart idea on her behalf. Now that I go back and think about it, but that kind of started the journey of strumming my guitar and trying to write songs. And um, years go by, I picked it up a little bit, learned some covers here and there, but never really pursued it as I was just too scared and intimidated to kind of sing in front of anyone or perform in front of anyone. And that's where my brother comes into play. He was an older brother. He inspired me from day one through snowboarding and skateboarding, and just his ability, his talents in life on all aspects of just communicating with people and pushing his limits in action sports. And then he ended up getting injured brain injury that allowed him, that didn't allow him to pursue action sports in the skateboarding, snowboarding realm. So he started really pursuing music. And I watched him go down the journey of music. And that also, being my older brother, inspired me even more to just like really submerge myself in watching his journey with that. And there was a chance and opportunity for me. The whole time I always went to these band practices of theirs, and he started this metal kind of rock band, and I was this little boy watching them practice. They were all like 5 years older than me, and the whole time I was just at all these band practices. Um, my brother always told me like, you should be a part of this project. Like, you can do anything you want. But I just was like, yeah, yeah, totally. But never acted on any of it. It was just too intimidating. And finally, the opportunity arose for me to drum in that band, as the drummer ended up quitting. And at that point, my brother was singing. A couple of his really good friends that I had known since I was like 10 years old were bass, guitar. Um, and my brother phoned me and said, "Hey, do you want to play in this band? Do you want to play drums?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have drums. I don't know how to drum. So that wouldn't really make sense." And he said, "That's not the question. do you want to do this? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. And he hung up the phone. And I was just like, oh God, what did I do? What did I do? And he calls me back. He's like, you're going to buy Kyle's drums, and we have an opportunity to open up for a band called Hail the Villain that was taking off at the time, in a 3-month span from me saying yes. And he said, do you want to play that? And I said, well, again, I don't have drums. I don't know how. He's like, that's not the question. Do you want us to play that show? And I said, yes. And he hung up the phone and said, okay, said okay, hung up the phone, called me back. He said, you're buying these drums. We're playing that show. You have 3 months to learn how to play 1 hour worth of drumming for this metal rock band. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I did. I ended up drumming my heart out every night after my, full-time job as a steam fitter, pipe fitter at the time. And within 3 months, I learned 1 hour's worth of drumming for a metal rock band and took the stage in front of 300, 400 people, sold out show. And that moment of saying yes changed my life. It showed me that we as humans really are just capable of literally anything if we just decide to do it, and put the work in. But unfortunately, that journey was ended with the loss of my brother. And we were about 5 years into performing with him. We were at a level of, record label opportunities and opening for Vince Neil and Biff Naked and playing some of the biggest stages in North America at some of these festivals, and just incredible journey. And my brother ended up going through some addiction issues and ended up passing away, with the ties between addiction and, unfortunately, the failed healthcare system that was there supposed to be there to help him. And he ended up passing away in between a detox session and rehab. And that obviously shook my world. I lived with him. I was in a band with him. He was my best friend. I drove around in a car every single day with him, like he was a part of me on levels that, again, words don't really describe or justify. And that really changed my life. And I ended up having 1 month out writing a song for him, a tribute song with my guitar. And it was, I think, the third song that I had ever written. And it was the first song that I had ever shared on Facebook or any social media, or just in general, other than a couple people. And I ended up sharing that song, and that would have been probably close to when I met you at the gym, around that era. But I guess shortly after that. But I shared that song, ended up going viral on Facebook, and I just was given the opportunity within a couple hours of going into the local radio station, and I played that song live on air. And again, at that point, I could barely sing and play guitar at the same time. It was just this incredibly touching, emotional exchange that happened. And it wasn't about clout. It wasn't about like, hey, look at me. It was just me expressing what I was going through. And that was the turning point of me suppressing my emotions and hiding any type of feeling that I've, gone through. And up until that point, again, even jumping on the stage, I was still behind the drums. I was still very shy, and I was still very closed off. And that was the moment I felt this incredible release of tension, of stress, of emotions, of just a weight that was lifted. And I pretty much have been pursuing music since that moment. And not just on my end, but the reaction that I got from hundreds and hundreds of people from that video, thanking me for singing and talking about addiction and loss and grief. And that was it. I've been 10 years deep into this pursuit of music, through the band Kane Incognito that you would have kind of first saw me with. I guess that's actually when I met you. And then a couple of years, 4 or 5, I pushed that with a band with some good friends and family. And then COVID kind of hit, cut that short. And then I ended up pursuing, for the last 3 years, solo. So that's where it all started, and now where we are.
So First of all, that's a incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing. And once again, man, I'm sorry to hear about your loss. I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like. So I'm, very proud of you for finding a positive thing out of a very negative situation and scenario, right?
Thank you.
Um, you know, I'm, I think it's great that you're able to channel some creativity and that you were able to turn that whole situation into something that you were able to focus towards. Because I feel like people often they get very lost when they face a severe loss like that in their life, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it
No, I
sounds
definitely
like you're able to positive thing.
yeah, it was I definitely saw the crossroads, and the first year after he passed, I had struggles with my own addictions around alcohol and pretty much socializing aspect of the alcohol and going out and chasing girls and just being a part of that, the party, the nightlife. And um, alcohol was my outlet to navigate the social anxiety with being around people. Again, talking about being very shy and being very closed off, I was. But I found that alcohol was my escape from that, at least as I thought at the time, which led to 10 years of every weekend drinking myself, into oblivion. And that was a year after my brother passed. I had my own, it intensified as that was just all I knew. How would I grieve this? Well, I just go hang out with people that want to hang out and we would just drink, and that was how we were dealing with it. And it took a year for me to really understand that that is just not how healing looks in any way. It just made it worse. I almost passed away myself and had a couple scares around that. And that really shook me to my core and showed me that, okay, this, if I want any change in my life that is going to really affect me and benefit me and my family, which is what we needed some stability, and we didn't need any more, close calls or death. And, that was the choice I made. And rather than going out, I started playing my guitar, and that is what really anchored me to the success that I'm having right now, and just that healthy outlet where you're going with that. So yeah.
Yeah, you alluded to healing there, and I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more too. Um, Obviously, you were in time in your life where you were looking to substances for what probably felt like at the time an escape. In a sense, it was healing for you. But what allowed you to actually heal? And obviously, you're still, I'm sure, healing to this day. But what allowed you to like heal and work through that at the time?
um well, not only the music outlet, which I think is a part of it, but again, this is where you kind of come into play. My pursuit in health and fitness, exercise. I quickly realized, so right before my brother passed, I was coming off a snowboard injury. I had sprained and elongated my shoulder, and nothing tore but my shoulder, and everything was like hanging 2 inches lower from a snowboard injury. And it was like 4 months of healing, and I lost a lot of weight because I wasn't just doing it. If I was in the gym and exercising other parts of my body, I wouldn't have lost that weight, but I didn't know how to do that at that point. And I had just uh, kind of fell into depression for a bit because I wasn't able to snowboard, and that was definitely my outlet for many years in the winter months. But I ended up losing like 15 pounds, and I was sitting at about 175 pounds at that time. And like you mentioned, I am quite tall. I'm 6'4", so 175 pounds is quite small for my height and frame. And it looked that way. I looked unhealthy, and once my brother passed, I really realized that, and I started. It was one of the things was as you know I'm not sure the word, but like vanity side of it, of like the looks. I did not like the way I looked, and that was one of the initial um, factors in starting to work out. But then what really surprised me was the mental health benefit that I got, and just how overall it affected my life in every aspect. And I just started getting into a gym regiment and a kind of just a routine of making myself go a couple times a week to 3 to 4 times a week. And it just got to this point where I just started feeling really, really good. And in comparison to only using alcohol for an outlet, that was just the contrast between the two was just night and day. Now, in that first year of exercising, I was still drinking, and that was where I really again felt that contrast of like, okay, if I go out and drink, I am so low for days on end. I feel terrible. It's truly poison. But then when I work out like that, it just the benefit and the contrast again was just night and day. So I started really honing in on exercise, and that's where I started going to the gym. I ended up moving out of Edmonton residence where I lived with my brother, and I moved into the small town of Spruce Grove, where I ended up meeting you at Perpetual Fitness. And that is where I spent when I decided to stop drinking entirely. At that time, I put all of my efforts at night into the guitar, and in the daytime, I took quite a bit of time off work. I would go to the gym, and I just started making these goals of eating enough, fueling my body enough, and then I really started seeing the muscle gain, and I ended up gaining 45, I think, or 50 pounds of muscle in that first year of just naturally working out. And just, I probably went quite, maybe excessive or hard, whatever you want to say. But at the same time, that is what I will argue to till my face is black and blue, which is what saved my life, was my escape in the gym and that healthy outlet that I gained. And, a lot of people get the community side of it is what helps them. And I did make a few small connections with you, but ultimately we didn't really talk that much. I wasn't there to talk. I wasn't there to communicate. I was there to sit and listen to my own thoughts and build the muscle that I knew I should have, and just ride that wave of healing that I knew was happening.
Yeah. No, I always find it so interesting how, like, even for myself too, but like everybody that I talk to on the podcast, they seem to talk about the same reasons for them wanting to get into fitness, and it usually is like that initial vanity reason of wanting to feel better about how they look, or they're wanting to appeal more to the opposite sex or whatever it may be. And I think in a sense it's good because it gets the ball rolling and it gets those habits started. And it's cool to see people shift and everybody talk about the numerous benefits of working out, like you alluded to, like the mindset, the mental stuff, everything.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many studies now too, and so much information on the internet, which wasn't as um, dense then, 10 years ago. But there's just so much information now around the benefits of even just muscle mass and the prolonged life we have, and the brain power to thigh size, and like there's just so much benefit to having, not just exercising and moving the body, but to actually building the strength and building the muscle size, and the endorphins that your muscles emit, or however it's all working. It's truly life changing. It is amazing.
Yeah. I kind of want to quickly like fast track into some more of the music stuff, but quickly before we move on, I think this is a great chance to talk about today's podcast sponsor, because we're talking about mental health and recovery and sleep. So
Yes.
the podcast sponsor today is Magic Mind, and we have a sleep shot here. This is without melatonin. We have magnesium, you have GABA, you have 5-HTP, L-theanine, everything packed into this this 2 fluid ounce little bottle. So if you want to give these a shot, we have a code for you to try because we love you so much. It is going to be www.magicmind.com/ph50 for money off of your first purchase, whether it's a subscription or whether it is going to be a first time order. So if you find that your sleep isn't as good as it could be, give these a shot. We love them. And back from that commercial break, we're going to go back into what we were talking about. So we were talking about a lot of the mental stuff, but one thing I really wanted to talk to you about today too is the idea of creation, but also the idea of like imposter syndrome. Um, because I think that that's a thing that everybody experiences to varying degrees. So I know a lot of people that I talk to, like they're very scared to put themselves out there when it comes to content. And I feel like, you have experience with, you mentioned it in this podcast already, getting into music and having some self doubt, some fear with getting yourself out there too. So how did you work on improving that? And how did you work on getting more comfortable with putting yourself out there and being on stages and now to the point where you're performing on your own?
Um, yeah, it's a huge, huge part of it, and I think it is I think the maybe not the right word, demise of a lot of people's creativity, but like it halts a lot of talented people because they can't get over that hurdle, the initial push of fear and uncomfortable um, settings, and just the vulnerability of putting yourself and what you create out there. Um, Unfortunately, and kind of fortunately, I was pushed into this realm of expression from one of the worst things that could possibly happen, and that is losing a loved one. Um, that's the unfortunate side. The fortunate side is I just stopped giving a fuck. Now, with that being said, I still went through all of the emotions. I still had the nerves. I still had all of those feelings that came with expressing and showing myself. And especially, I was a very shy, closed off human. So all of a sudden, to just express and be vulnerable on screen and to never have shared anything like that, that was so out of my comfort zone. But I just didn't care anymore. My whole life up until that point, I held myself back because of my walls of fear and comfort that I built around me. I allowed those walls, the cage, to dictate every step of my life, literally every step. That doesn't seem like an easy route that way. It's going to be, even just going out with certain people or like meeting new people, I would just be like, I'd rather go this way because it's easier. It's not comfortable to do that. And I just got to this point of being sick of my own shit. And so, with that being said, I just started acting on it and knowing that my visions and my dreams and who I wanted to become was on the other side of that uncomfortable era. And I just started doing it because if I didn't do it, I know I would regret not doing it and I would not be happy. I wouldn't grow. And again, the push of the loss of a loved one is what just made me the petty dramas, the petty fears, the little things that we just put so much and feed so much of our energy into, they just stopped mattering. And I just really went headstrong into not giving a fuck. Now, again, with that said, doing it was still just as hard, right? Like I spent years navigating it and putting, I go back and I look at some of the things that I shared musically and it's just like, that's so bad. But you know what? It got me to where I am now, making a living doing it and having where I'm sure we'll get into having a moment of, a song is going global right now on Instagram. And that all stems from making that decision 10 years ago. Um, and it's incredible. It's incredible to go back and look at how much I've grown and how much I've had to struggle and fight my own self sabotage and the imposter syndrome of you're not good enough and just everything in between to get to where I am. And it all just starts with pushing through the fear.
Yeah. I actually did a good reframe of imposter syndrome recently. Um, the way that I'm trying to reframe it as usually when you envision an imposter, it's someone trying to impersonate someone that they're not. But if you're trying to step into this, reality of who you want to become, then you can't be an imposter.
Well, I think
So I
maybe
think yeah.
the imposter is the person who's stopping you from becoming or leaning into who you actually are. Because I think the vision and the dream is actually who you want to be. It's not who you want to be, it's who you are. So maybe that's the perception of the imposter is actually you stopping yourself, and or the imposter is stopping, to get to who you truly are. Because I think that's what callings are, is our blood, is our DNA, is our soul, is our love and passion. That is who we are. All the bullshit and the fear and the dramas and the the uncomfortable ego and everything in between is just the imposter. That is the imposter. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never thought of it
No,
that way. I just kind of going off the fly there.
no, it's an interesting thought and perspective, and I think it's good for us to have this conversation though, because I think we tend to give imposter syndrome so much power, right? And it begins to control every decision that we make. But end of the day, if you can almost like acknowledge the beast that it is, and create awareness around it, I feel like it just robs some of the power away from it, and then you're
100%.
then able to lean into this more authentic version of you that you're trying to be. Because like it's very unfortunate. Like there's a lot of people that I know that like are creative and wonderful people and have a lot of passions and interests, but they have so much fear on putting themselves out there because the internet, for the reasons that it's wonderful, is also horrible. um and people are very judgmental, but I feel like the people are also wonderful on there too. I've made a lot of great connections because of social media too.
Oh, it's incredible, really. Now, one of the things that my brother told me actually, as well, is if you doesn't matter how good you are, because I know for me, again, it's like there's so many people that are more talented, that are more, better guitar players, better singers, um, but they don't exactly have the courage to step into it. And where I now have one and am better in the sense is being able to get to that point. So as soon as you put yourself out there, as soon as you get on the stage, as soon as you get behind the camera, you've won. You've already been in that position and taken the step, and now you are bettering yourself. And anyone who curses you and posts or puts any judgment on you in a negative way online, the only reason they're doing that is their own insecurities and their own jealousy of not being able to do the same for the most part. And that is one of the things my brother said. As soon as you get on this stage, you've already won. It doesn't matter what anyone else says, you've already won. And that mindset has really kept me going. And you really understand the psychology of humans and how they, when anyone's really reacting on the internet with the keyboard warriors, they're not happy. No one is cursing and spewing that type of negativity if they're truly happy with themselves. And that is one of the things, as soon as you realize if someone isn't happy and if someone's in that mind state, ultimately at the end of the day, I feel sorry for them. I feel, so their comment and their perspective and their judgmental ways literally affects me in no way, because at the end of the day it's like, man, I feel for you. I hope you have a better day, and you can figure whatever else is going on in there to allow you to not make the world worse,
Yeah, that's
one
a
of the
that's a great perspective on it too. So I feel like we so often experience hate, but I think people take it so personally when really, like you mentioned too, it's more just a representation of their own insecurities that they're
it is
projecting upon you.
it really
Yeah.
is. It's in my opinion, it's 100% that, right? Like, again, like I consider myself quite healed. I've done so much work to be in a place of peace and just everything in between. And I would never cast hate upon someone, even if I don't believe in what they're saying, even if I don't say it's very good or whatever. It's like I'm never going to bring them down. Like that's just not what people that are content and living in their own peace and harmony do. So at the end of the day, if someone is doing that, it's because they're not in that place. And that's where my mind and perspective goes. I hope you get there one day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a podcast we did a little while back where someone made a good comment about how um people never punch down, they punch up.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
if someone's like, like at a point where they're also taking a risk, they're also putting themselves out there, it's very unlikely that you're going to receive hate or judgment from them. It's always going to be people that are like, living their life in comfort and living their life in a sense where like they're not fully comfortable or not fully happy with what they're doing, and they feel that they need to like tear you down
To
because
make them feel better. That's the
yeah,
or try to at least,
because you have
right?
courage.
Yeah, it
Because you
is.
have
It
courage,
really
right?
is.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. It's funny because I've had this conversation many times with other artists and other musicians that have a lot of like, hate comments or just comments that really get to them on posts that get more traction or whatever. Um, I had this happen one of the first couple years in Kane Incognito where I had a cover um, kind of take off on YouTube, and you go through all the comments, and with every post for the most part, and I started getting these like, holy crap, they're cutting me down and like trying to make me feel bad through these comments. And I was like, at first I was letting it affect me. But then again, I immediately used that perspective and I flipped that perspective and I started like reaching out to these people and like actually talking to them in the comments. And like first I was like kind of playing and bringing humor to it and like getting more engagement out of it. But then I would actually like have these conversations with them, and by the end of it, they're like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, and it is actually a pretty good cover." And it's like that right there shows you how much power like just communicating and like how much that had like actual truth in any way. Like it was zero. All it was that person was having a bad day. They were triggered enough to put that out there to try to, whatever it is. There's a million reasons it could be, but it all falls down to most likely they're not in a very good place. And I found that out very quickly when I started kind of calling them out and then like having these little mini conversations and engagements with them. And it's like a lot of them literally like I got them to go listen to my actual music and they're like, yeah, okay, it's pretty good. And it was just so funny to navigate over the years and just to see. Yeah.
It's funny because if I receive hate comments now and stuff, um my biggest thing that I do is I just like make a joke about it, because like as soon as you like make a joke, like you mentioned, it really like de-escalates the severity of the comment, because really what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to get a reaction from you. So if you don't give them a reaction, then they're just like, oh, okay.
It immediately diffuses and they're just like, well, crap, that backfired. Now I feel bad. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I do want to say one thing that, like, I admire you putting yourself out there, because, like, I think even when we met too, like, for context, like, I was not now, but I was a very introverted person. I also didn't like attention, didn't like the spotlight. I always kind of like to hide as well. And one thing that really helped me is just like, I kind of used the cold exposure technique where I just like, kept pulling the camera out, kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. But now people like, it's funny because people ask me now, like, oh, you podcast, you're on camera all the time. Like, it seems so easy for you. And I'm like, yeah, but there was a point in time where it was not. Like, for years, it was like very, very challenging to just like
for sure.
be okay and open to the idea of putting myself out there. And like, it's just repetition. It's like no different than the gym. You have to go
100%.
consistently over and over and over again. So different with like music, right? You want to make a good song, you have to play the song over and over and over again. You want to like, learn a cover really well. It's no different. It's like just the physical reps and mental reps of
Exactly. And
getting good. Yeah.
that's where the mental side is like for myself again was I had all of the same struggles that I used to prior to committing to putting myself out there. But I just had this firm belief and knowledge that I just had to do it. So it was the driving factor, but I still had to get through all of those other emotions. But then the actual repetitions of just doing it, it was like it took years, honestly, right? Like it took years for me to get comfortable, and I still get a bit of nerves going out on stage. And you just learn how to navigate it now. It's like for me, I know I have to eat a certain amount of calories and like a good meal in order for my brain and my body to function as well as it should be or could be. So exactly, you have to start, you have to go in with the zero knowledge, you have to go in scared as hell because you'll never feel completely ready. You'll never be ready until you become ready and worthy when you get the reps in. So it's all part of it, and you just have to make that first leap.
Well, one of the I had a podcast guest on, I think it was in, I want to say earlier this year, like April sometime, and she was a psychologist from Texas. We talked about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and don't worry, I'll tie this into to the topic. But she mentioned a cool idea or cool thought that people can have a bit of both. I was kind of under the impression that you either had one or the other. Either you were just a person that had a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. But within chatting with her more and kind of unpacking that, I realized that we always kind of associate there being a negative thing on a fixed mindset, right? Um, but the way that she framed it is like, like you want to have a fixed mindset in some ways, right? Like when it comes to your values, your morals, your ethics, the people you spend time with, like I think it's good to have a fixed mindset of like not giving up on yourself, But in some ways, it's good to have a growth mindset on the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, okay, this kind of like is poo poo right now, air quote, but maybe eventually it won't be as poo poo, right? It'll be like better and it'll get better. And the more comfortable I get with it too. And it's like you have to, in a sense, have a nice combination of a fixed and a growth mindset in order to be successful in my.
100%. And as soon as I wasn't sure exactly what they meant in this, in context, but as soon as you halfway through that, I was like 100%. I have a fixed mindset of who I am, my truth, my why, my beliefs, my values, the boundaries I've set in my life in and out of music. And then I have the growth side where I knew at the same time that growth aspect was a bit of delusional belief in myself as well, in the sense of like, I thought for many years I was good enough to be where I am now. And I go back and it's like, no, you weren't. But that delusional belief and the ability and wanting, because I knew for a lot as well of time that I wasn't very good at singing. I kept blowing my voice out and doing this and doing that. And I just knew that I could be better and I wanted to be better. Um, but also sticking to my guns in so many ways of why do I want to get better? What is the values behind what I'm doing and the uh, the direction I want to take it? And that I think tying into what is happening right now, which is my authentic brand and self, is what is going and having the moment on Instagram right now. Like me sticking to my guns and being true to myself and my message and the power of gratitude in the little moments of life are the things that got me through some of the darkest times of my life. And speaking of all those things around grief and around loss and the yin and yang to it all, because there's negative sides and there's dark sides to it, and there's also the positive where I've really come out and I've experienced both. And now talking about it over all the years, I've been told so many times to stop. I've been told, it's just not what sells. It's not this, it's not that. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, I don't give a shit what sells. I'm doing this because it feels good to me. And it might take a lot longer to get my point across and my message across. But I truly believe that if I need this and the millions or the hundreds or the thousands now that have reacted to what I'm doing in a positive manner, there's millions more out there. And if there's millions, there's billions. And that is the perspective I've really held on to in the fixed mindset of this is going to change the world, I feel. And I'm going to try really hard to help heal a lot, as many as I can through the methods that I've chose. And going back to what's happening right now on Instagram with my song, Water My Soul, it has brought me to
Yeah.
tears. Within 3 days, I've hit 2,000 different reels from different people from different countries all around the world, and all sharing it with the things that they love and the little moments that are bringing them joy. And that is the epitome of the song and my message. And to have that break and hopefully bring me to another level in my career is so fulfilling. And that is where the growth and the fixed have led me to here. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. You need both.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome, and it's been crazy to see the climb of it. Obviously, because I follow you on socials, so it's been cool to see the climb of it over the past like 3 days or so. But
Yes.
then also like hearing you play it live. I think it was July and August was also very cool too, because I hadn't ever seen you perform, even though I've known you for quite a long time actually. Had never seen you perform, so it was cool to just see you up there, in your element. My one question I kind of had for you though was because I've listened through quite a bit of your music. Um, and then I've noticed that your style has changed quite drastically, and I mean that in a good way, right? And you kind of alluded to it. You alluded to it quite a bit in this podcast too about showing up more authentically as well. So, with that change of your music, how did that kind of come into fruition? Like, how did you go from like what you were doing to what you're doing now? Like, what was that whole process like? Because I feel like it can be challenging to not be wanting to chase virality and be wanting to chase what's gonna blow you up, for better words or whatever it may be, versus
Exactly.
just doing what speaks to you.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always a bit of a healthy balance in what's trending to a certain degree. But like, to be completely honest, it's been many years of when I first started writing music and singing behind the microphone. I formed the band Kane Incognito. For the most part, the idea of forming the band was to help me do it because I was too scared, or at least the idea of having people with me was going to help me because I was so scared. I wouldn't say I was too scared, but I was absolutely terrified of stepping into the music scene and stepping into the spotlight and doing what I'm doing now. It was absolutely terrifying. Again, going back to what we were just talking about. So I used the idea of forming a band, or at least having my friends and my family, my two cousins that formed it with me, and one of my best friends. That is a lot less scary going and walking up to a big festival with your boys. So with that being said, that really their creative mindsets kind of pulled me away from my truth and my sound, and then on top of that, really just being stuck in the middle of the creative aspect that way, and then having a lot of influence from artists that were having momentum across the world with in the music scene, um, where they're having their moments and becoming very inspired by what their sound sounded like, and having that influence what I was creating and how I was creating it. So it was just a lot of noise. That my writing style and how I write has always been the same. It always starts with me and my acoustic guitar. It always starts with words and the three pieces: the lyrics, the guitar, and my voice. That changed obviously once I went solo. The production behind it and what I wanted to how I wanted to get it across. And again, it took a couple songs to really kind of find the happy medium of where and how I wanted to share that message, and that three pieces of the base to it all, which is the guitar, the vocals, and the lyrics to it. How do I want to portray that? And that really, I think I've really found that now. And again, that takes some people a long time, other people it takes, shorter amounts of time. But yeah, it took just cutting out all the noise and honing back into my why and the vulnerability side of it all. And it's like it all starts with that guitar, the voice, the lyrics, the message, and that, you build from there. And as soon as sometimes you can build too much and it takes away from that, right? There's so much power when it's simplified, and I think that's where I'm finding what really resonates the most right now with me is that simplifying it.
Yeah, and I think this is a great example of leaning more into like what your gut's telling you and
Hmm.
following your heart. Because I feel like
For
a lot
sure.
of people, I think, especially when you face like for yourself where you're going from being in a band to going solo, or even if someone's going through like a rebrand of a business, or whatever it may be. I feel like there's a lot of fear of like, will people like this, right? And I feel like this is a great reminder to just be authentic, show up the way that you're supposed to, and to trust your gut. Like if you have a good feeling about what you're doing and you feel like it really speaks to you, like that's the most important thing, because people can rally with authenticity, right? And they could rally with what you're creating because it speaks to them on another level, because it's you speaking your authentic truth.
100%. And that is again like going into the information on the internet nowadays. It's like authenticity is one of the most powerful energies there is. It's more than love. It's more than all of the energies and frequencies that we emit is authentic energy. And people, especially this day and age, I think we hit this point of like music just being overproduced and chasing the digital age of production. And we've been through this big span of testing out that era of music and sound. But then with social media and like you look at what type of videos go viral this day and age, it's just like the authentic person talking to the camera and just spilling their heart for the most part. Those are the videos that are taking off. That emotional connection, right? And again, going to what my truth is and what my special gift is with my music. And that again, going back to like talking about people being more talented in the voice, singing wise, guitar wise, but what is my true gift that a lot of people don't have? And over the years, I've really had to like, what is my unique ability? And that goes all the way back to that first song that I ever shared, the tribute song to my brother. I could barely play guitar, I could barely sing, but the emotional connection and the emotional exchange that I was able to give the whoever was watching on the other side of that camera, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It's beyond any talent. And it's not like I learned it. It was something that just happened from the most tragic event and the breaking point of like, I need to get this out of me. And now every time I perform, I go back and I lean into that authentic way of expressing myself. And I can make a cover my own by just making you feel, you know, and I don't think you can practice that or train that. That's my gift. And that's where I've really learned to just like stop listening to the noise, stop listening to the virality, I can write a song or two that, chases a trend, but if my 90% of my brand is speaking authenticity, then then I'm winning. And feel like with any brand and any business, you kind of have to dive into all aspects. You got to have each piece individually of the pie to make everybody happy to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to be true to yourself. You have to be happy. And if you are, that radiates beyond any other frequency. Sorry, yeah.
Keep
To
going.
tie it all back, that goes right back to how did I navigate my sound now? It's just going back to the truth, the authentic, why am I doing this? And how do I want that to come across? And it'll always change, the small ways of producing things and, you know, just what's in here and there. But if you stay true to how you feel about those trends and not just chasing them because it's in, I think that's how you navigate it. Find what your sound is, Done.
Yeah. For those people that are currently listening right now, I think a mouse was just adjusting Eric's satellite dish. So I think it's all good now. Just trying to be funny. But yeah, no, I think an interesting piece that you talked about there is, and something that is kind of tied together too, is really the correlation between content and music and storytelling. Like if you look at like any good content creators, and if you look at good musicians, they're able to evoke emotion because they're good at storytelling, right? And I think that that's one thing that I really get from your music is there's a lot of emotion, but you are telling a story as you're doing, as you're playing music, as you're performing live. And it's cool to see, how you can really get across a very strong message if you are trying to sell a good story, and that story has to be really important to you.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I've been over the years inspired by other artists that tell those stories because I've connected because of those stories. And then that song just has so much more of an impact if I didn't know where it originated from. And that I really held on to that. And again, even all the years of knowing that that was a part of my brand and my expression, and having managers and bandmates and just people telling me, oh, I talk too much, there's too many stories, just play music. And it's like, I don't again, I don't care what you're saying. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for me, and I'm happy that this is how I'm able to do this and want to do this. And eventually, the right people will fall into place, and I really feel like that has happened and is happening now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, so to kind of wrap things up here, what things do you kind of have coming up? Obviously, you have this exciting trend of Water My Soul, which again, congratulations. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Um, but what else do you have coming up? I know that we were talking a little bit about it pre-podcast, so
Yeah.
let's talk about it now, and even where people can follow
Um,
you and stuff too.
yeah. Thank you, first of all, to having me on. It's always a pleasure to have a platform to speak around my journey and my message. Um, and yeah, the song is taking off right now. It's I don't even know what to expect from it. Like whether it stops now or if it keeps going, it can really it's almost scary. It could really be a game-changing moment, and what I've been striving for to a certain degree as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But in the meantime, with whatever happens with this song going viral on Instagram right now, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is releasing more music. I have another song coming out in the next month and a bit, and a tour across Western Canada once again to back that single. That's all going to be announced pretty shortly here. The beginning of November, I'm going to hit the road again. Um, I had a goal. Speaking of the growth mindset, and the last couple years, I wanted to tour once across Western Canada. I wanted to tour twice across Western Canada, and this year I made the goal to have booked and performed 3 Western Canada tours, and this will be my third. That I'm really proud to have accomplished that and have sold out almost the majority or 3/4 of all of the shows so far. And it's just I don't say that as like woe is me. It's a very inspiring. Again, I always just look back at what I wanted a year ago or 2 years ago and how far I've come just from just acting on those thoughts and those visions, right? It's really cool. So yeah, about to announce another tour and more music and just keep that ball rolling until I can't or until lots of people help me do it, and hopefully this song that is being literally shared worldwide right now from I could say like every country so far there's been a reel from it. It's incredible. So fingers crossed within the next year I start breaking out of the Western Canada and go across Canada and the world. Who knows? But
Yeah,
yeah, going back
amazing,
to
man.
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to
Yeah,
finish it
yeah, of
off with
course.
the social media handles. If you want to follow the journey, Eric Kane, which is written here, but just username Eric Kane underscore on most social media platforms. I think the only different one was Facebook, but search the same thing and it'll pop up.
Thanks, man. This has been really good to chat with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else you do this year.
Thank you, Bryce. It was a pleasure.